like see successful people, and I was like, man, they know something that I don't, or I would put them on this pedestal. And then when I started to get around more successful people, I was like, these guys have the same self-doubt and fear thoughts that I have, but they choose to take action anyways, and that's what propels them forward.
Yeah. Welcome to The Integrated Life. My name is Ken, and I am the host of this podcast. We have David here today. David, give a little intro of yourself.
Well, first off, thanks for having me, and thanks for coming to my place here in Calgary. We just got back here, so
Cozy.
yeah, it's starting to come together a little bit. But my name's David Jachetta. I'm a business owner. Right now, I run Be Known Media. So that's something that I just started. And this is the first time I've talked about it. Yeah. So you got the secret stuff right now. But yeah, I've been a business owner for 5 years now, and I'm really in the digital marketing and business development kind of industry. I'm also someone who loves exercise, as you know, like we vibe on that kind of stuff, fitness. I'm a runner. I do, a lot of different things, but I think I'm just somebody who enjoys life as well too, and I try to live it to the fullest.
Yeah, I mean, a traveler as well.
Big time traveler. Yeah. I just got back from living in Costa Rica for a little over a year, and that was awesome. And yeah, super grateful that I get to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I was telling you earlier that like I kind of want to start big, right? So,
big.
I want to know your why. Why do you do what you're doing?
Yeah. So first off, great question. I think my why has evolved a lot over the years. Like, originally, it kind of started because I lost my identity a little bit. Like, I was a hockey player for a lot of years. I was all about hockey. Like, I would wake up, think about hockey, I'd be playing hockey, and if I wasn't playing it, I'd be watching it. And after I stopped playing sports, I kind of felt like I lost my identity a little bit. And so I kind of went on this like soul searching journey of who I am beyond sports. And that really led to me kind of discovering like what I'm really good at, the things that I love to do. And that kind of led me into pursuing entrepreneurship. And I felt like I just had this mission on my heart. And a deeper reasoning to that mission is, I saw some of my friends pass away like when I was a teenager. And so that was really difficult for me because I always questioned like, why am I still here? And why is like an amazing person not still here? And that really just led to me trying to figure out like, why am I here? How can I add value to the world? How can I make my impact? How can I help other people? All of those sorts of things. And now it's kind of evolved over the last little while to really being an amazing person for my friends and family. Like my dad just passed away a little over a year ago. And so after that kind of happened, I really started to think about myself as like, what type of son do I want to be? What type of brother do I want to be? Like, how do I want these people to really remember me when they think about me? And that's kind of what's led into me living my life kind of the way I do and trying to impact people.
That's powerful, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. So what was your occupation before you started your business?
Yeah. So before I started my business, I was working at a place called Sport Manitoba. So I was an event planner for sporting events in Manitoba and Canada.
Cool.
At probably the worst time you could do that, right when COVID started. So I planned all these things and they never actually happened.
Yeah.
I was also a bartender at the Keg at the time as well too. So that's where I learned that I love communication. I got to talk to people, but yeah, that's what I was doing before.
Well, that's one thing I noticed about you is that your communication is like really on point. Like, is that something that you had to like learn how to do, or was it just kind of natural?
It's definitely a thing that I've practiced 100%, but I think I just love communication. I love talking to people. And I think that I got that from my mom. Like my mom, she used to do this job where, I don't know if you can call it a job, volunteer, where she would actually go to the hospital and talk to people who didn't have visitors coming. So, there's a lot of people who are in the hospital and they actually don't have like people who visit them all the time. They might not have family. So she was like a volunteer that would just go talk to people. And, it kind of started to make sense to me because I was like, man, I love talking to people. And it's something that I think she passed down to me. And over the years of working at the Keg, like I said, like as I was a bartender, I realized that I just loved conversation. I loved getting to know people. I would play these little games on like how to relate to something to something about someone.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. It's something that I definitely practice. And then like the video side of it and content creation, that's a whole different ball game. But yeah, I think it's been passed down to me and something that I just love to do.
Yeah. So it's like passed down plus like the reps you've been putting in all these years.
Absolute reps, dude. I've put in some reps. You know this. We talked about this.
Lots of reps, man.
Yeah.
I guess like something that could be like super valuable to the audience is what is like a huge takeaway, you know, from then till now?
In terms of communication?
In terms of like your life path so far?
Oh, man. I think that, you know, before I really felt like I was trying to figure myself out on what I was good at and the things that I loved to do. And then now I feel like I know those things and I can really develop those skills. And so I think it starts with like the self-awareness and the self-reflection of really asking yourself, like, who am I? Like, what do I love to do? What are my values? What are the things that come naturally to me? Because I believe that we all have gifts, you could say. We all have these different gifts. Like we were talking about video right before we hopped on here, and like being creative, and you know, someone else might love numbers or something like that. But I think you really got to ask yourself, like, what are the things I love? What am I good at? And then when you find those things, how do I really develop those skills so they can help other people, help me, and serve the world?
So let's say somebody wanted to take the path that you're going down.
Sure.
Like, what is like one piece of advice you would give?
The one piece of advice that I'd give if somebody was wanting to go into like entrepreneurship or something like that, I think it would be that self-doubt is completely in your mind. A lot of people ask me all the time, like, how do I overcome self-doubt? And I think that it's such a common thing. Like,
so common.
If like, let's be real right now. We both have self-doubt and fear all the time.
All the time.
All the time. Like, it's a natural thing. But something that one of my first mentors ever told me was that, you know, we all have this like programming in our minds that has been with us since we were like hunter and gatherers, right? Oh, yeah. And now we don't really have the same problems that we faced back then. Like back then it was like, where am I going to sleep? What am I going to eat? Is there a saber-toothed tiger going to come kill me? And that's where our fear and self-doubt was really developed. And now we don't have those problems. And so we create them in our mind. And so once I started to think about self-doubt as like, oh, this is a thought that I'm having. How do I really go past this? And I was like, oh, the world didn't end. I'm still alive. Like things didn't all crash down. And maybe it does sometimes, but it's all about overcoming that thought and that fear that's holding you back. And when you start to do that, you realize like, damn, I've been holding myself back a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty common. Like for the past couple of podcast episodes that I've done, self-doubt is just, it's always top 3 for people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'd get to talk to a lot of business owners. Like I'm very fortunate through like my business coaching career. I've met with a lot of people. I've also been introduced to people at like networking events, and it is literally every single person has this, but we all think that we're the only ones.
We do. I do.
Yeah, me too. I do too. Like whenever I'm in my head a little bit like that, like I totally think, oh, like this is a struggle that I'm only facing,
like,
but
they don't understand.
No. And even like the really successful people as well too. I remember I always used to like see successful people and I was like, man, they know something that I don't, or I would put them on this pedestal. And then when I started to get around more successful people, I was like, these guys have the same self-doubt and fear thoughts that I have, but they choose to take action anyways. And that's what propels them forward.
Yeah. It's like just like courage, you know, and it's not the absence of fear. It literally is just being fearful and doing it anyway, right?
Yeah. And I think that you can practice that really well. Like, let's take fitness, for example.
Yeah.
For me, it's running. I know everyone's not a runner, but if you're going to go for this long run, there's a ton of self-doubt and fear involved in that. Yeah. And you try to talk yourself out of it. But then when you go out and do it and you overcome that, you believe in yourself a little bit more and you have this kind of self-determination, like what else can I accomplish, right? Yeah. Same thing with fitness, like you're going for a PR or something. I know you've been crushing the gym.
Yeah, I mean with my bodybuilding thing, after I was done that, I felt like, what else can I do?
Exactly.
What else can I achieve right now?
Yeah. So like what are those like situations that you can train yourself in to overcome self-doubt in a setting you control? And then that kind of goes into like other things in life like entrepreneurship or relationships or something like that.
So I have been telling the other guys on the other episodes that my hardest thing is relationship, right? And then we came to a point where we said that it's a lot more EQ when it comes to, relationship building with like people and stuff like that. So the idea that like I can push through kind of like I do in the gym or something is actually harder to do when it comes to relationships.
Oh man. Would you agree with that? Like in terms of like friendships and networking
you can't just dog it out. Like
it's definitely more of a long game.
Yeah.
And I think that relationships are something that it's totally a long game with that one, and I think it's all built around like trust.
Yeah.
And so
is it a blind trust, would you say?
Depends on who it is. Like there's definitely blind trust. Like for me, for example, when I meet people, I see the good in them all the time. I want to like, interact with them and all those things, but until trust is broken, then obviously don't do that. But I think relationships is a different thing than self-doubt for sure, but that's a big one. Like especially in today's world, relationships is something that I think everyone's working on, myself included, and there's so many different facets to it. Yeah.
And I just like a lot of people would say that, being introverted makes it that much harder. Right? And I think I would say that I'm kind of introverted in a sense that like after a social interaction, I would feel the need to like recharge on my own.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So it's harder for guys like us, to get out there all the time,
Yeah. I used to be very extroverted, like extremely extroverted. Like I would want to go out all the time and be doing stuff and being around people.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until like the lockdowns happened where I realized that I actually really love spending time with myself. Yeah. And it is very recharging for me. And after all of the craziness that happened in the world, I almost struggled with getting out of that a little bit. Like I felt very introverted and I didn't want to go out, and I wasn't drinking alcohol anymore at that time. So I don't doubt that I had liquid courage before and things like that. But I don't know. Like it's a balance. Like for me specifically, I'd say like I'm an introverted extrovert. Yeah.
Would you say now with all that experience that like being introverted or extroverted can be trained?
Yeah, definitely. I think that there's probably seasons of life that we go through, right? Like there's seasons where you want to be more alone with yourself, working on yourself, resting, recharging. Maybe you're working on your business or some goal that you have. And then there's other times where you're like, I want to build my network. I want to build relationships. And I totally think it's just like the season of life that you're in.
I like that.
But you could definitely force yourself to be having more interactions with people if you are introverted. Like for instance, this podcast, you have to come sit down with somebody and do this, right? Or you could go out to a networking event and try and do that kind of stuff. And I think you can put yourself in situations to overcome it, just like the self-doubt, but it's always a balance and you got to know what season you're in.
Yeah. There's just like, I'm met with a lot of resistance in my own head a lot of times when it comes to that, especially networking event. Like, it gets me every time.
Bro, networking events there's really good ones and there's like not so great ones. Calgary seems to be like a city that has a lot of networking events. Like I've only been here for maybe a year. Like I just got back here a month ago, but compared to Winnipeg, like where I'm from, I didn't really see as many networking events and things like that. But the few that I did go to, they did a really good job at helping people like meet each other and collaborate.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's actually my next step, is to actually go to at least one this year.
Bro, come with me. Let's go. I'm literally going to some right away. Let's go. Come alongside. No, I'm serious, because we need to do this kind of stuff, because I feel like there's a massive gap in people around our age.
So true.
Like the networking events that I did go to, they were amazing. I'm not like saying anything bad about them, but the crowd was a lot older than me.
Wow.
Like a lot older. And so I learned so much from people who are older than me. I think you can take so much wisdom and knowledge from them. But sometimes you want to like vibe with people your age. And I think that that's something that we're missing here right now. And maybe we just came onto something here.
we can start it.
I want to. Well, like the coffee thing, right? Like when we started the entrepreneur coffee meetups. We got to keep doing that. So anyone watching, come to the entrepreneur meetup coffee things in Calgary. Seriously though, we need to do that stuff, because I'm curious your opinion on this too. So building my business right now, I'll speak for myself, like building my business. Sometimes I do feel like I'm working on something and I'm alone a lot of the time, because I'm not going to an office or anything anymore. So I'm not like interacting with as many people. I meet people on Zoom and stuff.
Yeah.
But sometimes it can get lonely. And I know that there's other people out there who are doing the same thing, that are like, I want some community.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm feeling right now for myself. I don't know if you agree with that too.
Dude, like I've been battling the difference between being alone versus being lonely, right? There are times where I'm totally good by myself, where I'm recharging and all that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
And then there's moments where, holy crap, I think this is actually loneliness. Which is, I think, is very vulnerable to admit, because, you know, being lonely kind of says that like you're not good with people or something like that, you know? So there's a little bit of like, shame maybe that I feel when I say it.
Bro, well, first off, I'm so happy you said it, because I have the same feelings as well too, and I know there's other people that do too. Like, there's definitely times that I've been lonely, and I think that it's something that I still continue to experience. And one of the toughest parts for me was like gravitating away from a lot of my friends that I knew growing up. Like when I started my self-development thing and my business and posting on Instagram all the time, you know, naturally people weren't vibing with that, and they liked me as the party Dave and the guy that didn't really care about things. And, you know, when I switched into that, there's absolutely a lonely chapter that you have to go through. And I think that I kind of am still in it a little bit, and it's something that I struggle with too,
it's like
for sure.
A roller coaster ride, right?
Definitely, but
moments.
You do meet people along the way, and then that kind of fuels. They're like, all right, I am going in the right place. There's other people who I can connect with. There's people who like the things that I like to talk about. So we just got to be finding it and creating it, maybe.
Yeah, I think creating it more so now that I think about it, because like I've been sitting around waiting for you guys to start the coffee thing and all that stuff, right? And
bro, I dropped the ball on that one. I did. I promise it's coming back. It's a thought that I have.
2025.
I'm serious.
But like waiting is not a very efficient thing for yourself, you know? Like if you're feeling it, reach out, you know? And I had such a hard time just reaching out.
Yeah.
And I think partially that's what this podcast is supposed to get me out of my shell, like in that way too. Right? And in a way, like I think, like if I initiate, like, because I used to do that too. When I was going out and partying, you know, when I was younger too, it was me setting up like the pre-drinking parties or whatever, right?
Right.
And then I stopped doing that as I got older, and I started focusing and not really hanging out with the high school friends or like my childhood friends. It was very gradual, and you wouldn't even notice it if you didn't reflect.
Yeah, it's such a touchy like subject when we talk about like gravitating away from your friends.
It seems like you're too cool or you're too good or something like that, right?
Yeah, and I totally don't think that. And one of the things that I really started to realize, like when I was gravitating away from the people that I used to hang out with, was sometimes we have this like idea that you do need to cut everybody off in order to be successful. Like, you know, you hear people like Alex Hormozy or somebody kind of talk about that stuff.
Alex does that.
And what I started to realize was that there's relationships that serve different purposes in my life.
I love that.
So, you know, there's a lot of times where I want to talk with people about business and entrepreneurship and personal growth. And then there's times where I want to hang out with people who don't like me for my Instagram account, or they don't like me because of how successful I am in business, but they just care about who I am as a person. And we kind of get to hang out and not think about all that kind of stuff. And knowing when you want to have that and need that in your life is something I'm actively working on, but I think it's really important.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then it doesn't seem like you have to cut anybody off. It's just certain situations, you know, you have certain people in your life.
This guy was talking about this thing called the minivan theory. And the minivan theory is that you're driving on like your life's journey or whatever, and at different times in the road trip or the trip of your life, you're going to have different people who are maybe sitting in the passenger seat with you or sitting in the next seat. And so what he said is, don't kick people out of the van when you're going on your journey, but maybe some people are just sitting in the back for right now. And you might have another person sitting up in shotgun with you while you're going through the journey, but you don't need to throw them out of the van to keep going.
Oh, I love that.
I know, dude.
Whoa.
When I heard that, I was like, damn, like it really hit me, because I feel like that's kind of what I've been trying to do.
Yeah, because like, you know, they're still in the back. They're still on this path like with you. You know, but you're not necessarily like talking to them all the time or whatever, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you could check on them once in a while, you know, turn around.
Yeah, we're still going to have a conversation, but like, let's like, you know, you can still talk to them, and maybe they do come up back into the front seat at one point or in the next section. But yeah, I really liked the idea of not like cutting everybody off, because relationships are one of the things that I value most in my life. Yeah. And I definitely don't want to be the person who becomes extremely successful and then I have nobody to share it with.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's not the life that I want to live, right?
Yeah.
And I think I've personally been influenced by a lot of the stuff I see online.
Yeah.
And I really have to be like, okay, what am I taking from this person, and what do I not agree with that's not in alignment with my values?
Nice.
Yeah.
To play devil's advocate, I did spend like 6 years of my time like with my mom and dad, you know, immigrant parents at a sushi restaurant. We were doing 12-hour days there, being around them the entire time. And from that perspective of understanding, like, being around people does impact you more than you think it does. Like, from that perspective, I'm like, okay, that's where you like have to like evaluate the relationships a little bit, right?
Like, being around somebody too much is what you're saying? Oh,
or,
yeah.
Like, it's not like we talk and like consciously, you know, absorb each other's energies or whatever, but over time, the 6 year period, you just start like thinking like each other.
Of course.
It's crazy. So in that sense, where it's like, okay, so where do I draw the line between you still being in my life and not, type of thing, right?
Ooh. Well, there's that like saying that you're a sum of the 5 people that you spend the most time with,
and that's where it comes.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, there's different times where maybe you are more forced to spend more time. Like, let's say like you work at a place where you have to spend 12 hours a day with certain people all the time, then that's a little bit different, but it's definitely something that's difficult to do, because I always think about that. Like, I'm like, who am I spending the most time with? And I'm trying to be very conscious and aware of that, but sometimes it is out of your control, like you said. Yeah.
So like for me to unlearn, you know, my immigrant parents like ways of like thinking about money, like the scarcity mindset, and like, you know, hard work and all that kind of stuff. There's good and bad, right? But
yeah, definitely.
But to unlearn the bad, it almost takes twice the amount of time to unlearn.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that's something that is not talked about enough, actually. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's something where, like, consciously reflecting on it, like, what are the good things that I do really want to continue on with, because there was probably a lot of good stuff that did come
Yeah.
from that. And I think about it the same way in like my previous things.
Yeah.
But yeah, then unlearning the other stuff, because some of it's unconscious too.
It is. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I didn't think it'd impact me so much.
Yeah. No, it's true. And like, good for you for being aware of that and working on it. I have my own stuff that I'm working on as well too. And I think that it's just an ever evolving journey. So
Right.
we're always unlearning stuff. We could get into like the school system and like all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's another thing.
So true, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we can kind of like do a left turn here.
Little pivot.
And we'll talk a little bit more about like your traveling and stuff like that. Like, what got you started in like the whole traveling?
Yeah. So I think what really started it was when I started my business. I created it so that I could have freedom in my life. Like, that was something that I really wanted to do. I wanted to explore the world and learn about new cultures, and I hadn't really done a lot of that before. So building my business, when it got to the point where I was like, okay, I feel like I can actually go do this, which was kind of a shot in the dark. It probably wasn't at the right point. It was totally a risk. But yeah, I don't know. It was an intuitive feeling to really start traveling. I remember like sitting in my first condo I was renting in Winnipeg, and it was still the middle of lockdowns. Like in Manitoba, it was a lot worse than it was in Alberta. And I was just at this point of like, I don't want to be here anymore. And I booked flights to Thailand. You weren't even allowed to travel there yet. And then a couple weeks before, they opened it up, and I got lucky. I got to go there. And once I experienced Thailand and Bali, I knew that traveling was something that was going to be a part of my life for the rest of my life moving forwards, for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is it like that you're trying to achieve with traveling?
I don't know if there's like a goal, like if it's like, oh, I want to like see every country in the world or something like that. But I think I'm a very intuitive person. And if there's something that's pulling me towards a place, I'm just very curious. I'm like, why do I really want to go to Costa Rica? Like, what is there for me that is like in my mind all the time and in my heart? Like, why am I being pulled there? And I think when I've started to listen to that, like in a not like a all guns blazing kind of way, like I get a feeling and I'm like, oh, booking a flight tomorrow. It's like calculated. Impulsive. Yeah, not impulsive. Yeah, but I think that it's just like, hey, there's something there for me. There's something for me to learn. There's a person for me to meet. I'm going to evolve in some sort of way. And it's just helped continue to shape me as a person and how I live my life. And I think that's kind of the main goal of it, is just continuously learn and be curious about the world and absorb things from everywhere.
That's a good answer, actually.
Yeah.
What would you say like is a good tip? Like, can you give a good tip on how to listen to your intuitiveness more?
Yeah. So that's a good question.
Because like I feel like mine has been severed a little bit. Like, I know what I'm supposed to do, so I just do those things. But in terms of my gut feeling for things, it's a little bit severed.
Yeah. I think a big thing is like starting to, or at least trying to be in tune with your body as much as possible. That's something that as men, we don't really ever talk about, like being in tune with your body. You go talk to like a woman and she's like very in tune. She understands her emotions. She's, very like, she has a very good intuitive feeling. Like, women are just very natural with that, but men are very not in tune with their bodies. At least I wasn't. So I think that's like the first thing, is really like maybe trying to do things like meditation, yoga, sitting with yourself for an extended period of time without any like input coming in.
Yeah.
Journaling is a big one for me. I've been a journaler we're going to go downstairs after. I'll show you how many journals I have. I literally have been journaling for 6 years, like almost every single day. And I think one thing for intuition that I've found through journaling is the repetition that comes out. Like, if I have the same feeling and thought coming to me repeatedly, there's something there. So I'm trying to almost analyze the themes that are happening in my thoughts and my feelings and my emotions. And that kind of helps me kind of know when my intuition's speaking up.
Okay. journaling for 6 years.
6 years.
Holy,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
It was something that I did even before I knew what journaling was. I started journaling because I was really scared to talk about my emotions and thoughts with people. I was very self-conscious about the way that other people perceived me. And so when I was going through a really difficult time in my life with my family, I would just write about it. And I have these Word documents on my computer where I just write about what's happening in my life and almost like having just an honest conversation with myself. And then what really happened was I was like, okay, pen and paper's where it's at.
Yeah.
And I just started to just write every morning. I write about anything that's on my mind, really, like anything that's going on in my life. And it's been a very good practice to let things out every single day and reflect on what my thoughts, feelings, and emotions are like.
I like that because then there's like pattern detection,
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
A little bit nerding out about it, just like, where are my feelings at right now?
I'm low key like a very like nerdy person, but I might not seem like that to everybody. But I have an inner nerd. But I'm also just like, it comes back to being curious.
Yeah.
I am so curious, and I think that as kids, we're all like extremely curious, but then the world's kind of like, no, don't do this, or don't think like that, or try and stay in line, and we lose that curiosity. And I think I've found it over the last couple of years, and I'm just like, hey, let's see what's going on with this life thing.
That's cool. I recently heard that, like, or I heard a podcast that was talking about the inner child.
Yes.
And, being playful, having a playful spirit is a part of that. Mm-hmm. And maybe you found your inner child, man.
I feel like I totally did, and I think it's something that I need to connect to more often, because sometimes I do get too serious. I don't know about you. Like, I get pretty serious sometimes and like professional, which is important.
Yeah.
But then there's other times where I'm like, I just need to have fun and kind of like, do whatever.
And like to be able to like blend the two, like that's where I want to get to, like all the time, just have that blended,
Yeah, and it's enjoyment of life.
Yeah.
Is what it comes down to, right? And like, what are we really here to do? Like, am I here to work 12 hours a day all the time? Yeah. Probably not. Do I need to do that sometimes? Yes. But I'm here to experience the world and make the most of this life that we have here, because we only get one opportunity at this. Yeah. And I think that's like coming back to like your why. That's a really big thing for me. Like, I don't want to get to the end of my life and be like, oh, I wish I did this, or I wish I took that chance on this. Like, I want to get to, the later years in my life and be like, yeah, I totally went for it. And, maybe I messed up a couple things along the way, but I had fun. I enjoyed myself, and I did the things that I felt like I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, for a lot of people, that's hard to do, like, I've spoken to people who have a hard time even getting out of the job that they hate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something as simple as that. Like, they say a salary is a trap. It keeps you in the place because you're comfy and stuff. But in my mind, you could be comfortable in misery too.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think the whole like your example there of like getting out of a job, it's really difficult to do that sometimes, especially if you're getting like paid a certain way and you rely on that, right? Yeah. Like, we all live we live a lifestyle now that's very consumption based, and we're always needing the next thing. And so we need that job to fuel that from time to time. And it's extremely scary to think like, if I don't have this, what am I going to do? And I think that's a really big trait of entrepreneurs, is like, when their back's up against the wall or they don't know what they're going to do, they figure something out and create something with what they have. And I think that when, you're working in a job, which is great, I'm not like trying to diss that or anything. Yeah. Sometimes you can get comfortable with that salary, as you say, that you don't have the skill after to be like, well, what can I do next type thing, Yeah.
It's also like the fear of like starting over or something.
Yeah, of course. Definitely.
When it comes time to like make that jump or whatever, like, what do you remember that initial moment where you're like, I'm going to go into this? Like, you made up your mind. What was that like?
I think that this is such a good question. I think it was always something that I knew like intuitively or in my mind or something like that. Like when I was working for other people, I just always told myself like it's not going to be forever. Like you're going to work for yourself. Like this isn't something you're going to do forever. So it was kind of like a seed I had planted in me that needed to grow over time. And the thing that actually made me do it was COVID taking away my work. Like I lost my job, I think it was 3 times during the lockdowns, because we would lock down and then we would open up and then we'd lock down and we would open up. And I was so mad because I genuinely do enjoy working.
Yeah.
Not 24/7, but I enjoy working.
Yeah.
And I hated that someone was telling me when I couldn't work. And I wasn't able to like, earn anything during that time. Like it was really difficult for me, and it kind of just pushed me to this edge almost of like, I'm going to create my own thing. There's no one who's going to tell me when I can and can't work, and I'm going to really like try this. And that was, in 2020.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're just like, but like, what made you choose this? Like, was there something else that was like, competing with what you're doing right now, like as a business coach and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. Well, so the journey, I wasn't always a business coach and into marketing and all that kind of stuff. What actually I started with, I was selling t-shirts. So I started a company called The Therapy Effect, and The Therapy Effect was all about the physical, mental, and emotional well-being of people and how we could do that through exercise and mindset. And I was I was selling t-shirts that had the logo on it, and I started building an Instagram account, and people were really starting to connect with it. I felt like it was really helping a lot of people. Nice. And the t-shirt thing wasn't the end all be all. I think I like lost like a lot of money on that one. Yeah. I didn't know what profit margins were and stuff. I was just like, let's get these out there. But I started building this Instagram account, and I just started creating content while I was at my job. And that kind of just, when I started to see that I was actually helping people, I just had the thought like, what if I did this full time? Like, what if this was my only thing? Like, how many people could I impact? Like, where could I really grow this thing to? And that grew bigger than my fear of what's going to happen if I leave my job. Yeah. So that seed kind of grew over time to get to that. Yeah.
So it was gradual too.
Yeah. But I'm also not like perfect with this at all either. Like I don't want to portray that I have everything figured out, or there was like these like moments for me that just like, it just was natural. Like there was a ton of times where I doubted myself and I was really scared, and I really cared about what people thought about me as well too. Like these are all struggles that I was going through during that time as well too. And it was very like messy action that I took to get there. Like it was not perfect, and I don't want to like make it seem like it was perfect because it wasn't. And I know when someone else is going on their journey, it's not going to be perfect. No. So I hope that can kind of connect with somebody else on that.
That's so true, because like if it's during COVID time, it's like there was so much uncertainty already to begin with.
Tons.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you added your own thing on top of that. It's just, it has to be messy. Like it doesn't make sense for it to just, keep going up like this.
No. And, even if you talk about like from a revenue perspective, like I was in the red for years. Yeah. Like I was not doing good revenue wise at all, but I really enjoyed what I did and I cared about it, and I had a longer term vision towards it. Yeah. And that's what propelled me through the tough times, was like, I know what I'm working towards. I don't feel like anyone else sees it right now, but I know what's about to happen. And I just like, that was my kind of North Star, I guess you could say. Yeah.
Did you like have a lot of support when you were starting?
I had like a select few people who were kind of like mentors to me. I invested in one of my first business coaches before I actually quit my job. So that was like biggest investment I ever made, in that, with money I didn't have at the time. And so when I started to get around people who were kind of doing the same thing or had already done the same thing as me, that's when it felt like I was more supported. But from like family and friends, I always felt like I couldn't relate to them on it because they weren't doing that.
Yeah.
Even though, like, you know, my mom's has supported me 100% of the time, all the time. Maybe sometimes she thought I was crazy, but she's always supported me. And like, you know, my core friends, like they've probably have doubted me before. Like they probably were like, what is this guy doing? Like he's posting videos on Instagram now. He's talking to the camera. But they always had an underlying like, yeah, I hope it works out for you. And if you ever want to talk about it, like here to talk about it. But it was something that I struggled with. I didn't feel like I could relate to a lot of people on.
Right.
Yeah.
That's something that I'm going through still, where I don't really feel supported.
Yeah.
You know, by my family and friends, and that's a part of the bitterness that comes with like me not reaching out to people for the longest time, because that was like the vibe I got from everybody, you know, and I had to kind of figure it out on my own. Like, I don't know if you know this, but like being Asian, like there's this expectation that you have to be like either a lawyer or an engineer or like a doctor. So, you know, with whatever it is that I'm doing, like videography, or even when I was making music and all that kind of stuff, it was always kind of like, okay, like you'll grow out of it type of thing, right? And it was always like, okay, I'm going to leave you to your thing and then you'll see type of vibe. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
And it's such a tough battle because, you know, it's your closest people to you. But I guess what I want to ask is, like, how would you overcome that?
Yeah, well, first off, I obviously I haven't lived that same experience as you. So, first off, I appreciate you for sharing that. Like, I know that can definitely be difficult. I do have some friends as well too who are Asian as well, and they've told me the exact same thing. So I know it's something that other people are dealing with as well too. I think that it might not come from your friends and family at first. Like the true support, it might not come from them. But if you put yourself into communities and networks of people who are doing similar stuff and who understand like what you're trying to do, I think a lot of support starts there first. And then other people start to support you when they start to see things actually happening. And they're like, oh, he is doing what he said he was going to do, like that kind of thing. So I don't know if that actually answers it, but I think that
it does, because as I got older, that's what I realized too.
Yeah, exactly. That's what happened for me.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened for me too.
So like but when you indicated that, like, you know, your friends or whatever, they had like doubts in you and all that kind of stuff, like it never made you like bitter or anything, hey?
Yeah, it definitely did.
Yeah, right?
Let's be real.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to lie about that. I think that there's like, you know, a lot of times too where it might not be said to your face, but there's definitely some things that might get said in different ways. Like I remember this one time, I was at my friend's house and we were like all just hanging out, like it was a guy's night or whatever. And he was like, Dave, like, I don't understand your Instagram account. Like, I don't like the videos that you post. And I was just like,
straight up,
damn,
holy.
Like, and we really started to talk about it. And he was like, yeah, like, I'm not being rude. I just don't resonate with the things that you talk about anymore. And I was like, you know what? That's actually a good thing because you're not my ideal client.
Yeah.
You're not the person that I'm trying to reach. And so it doesn't really matter if it resonates with you. And that gave me a lot of freedom into like, you know, I love my friends, but like they don't have to love the stuff that I do and the stuff that I talk about. It'd be different if I was like a bad person harming people, but I'm trying to like put out a positive message or do something positive, and it's not for everybody. And I don't want to like blame or fault anybody if they're not vibing with the things that I'm doing. But I think if beyond that kind of stuff, if they know who you are as a person and your values, that's something that they can connect with, and that's where you can find common ground with them.
I love that. I mean, what were his intentions to kind of like say that?
He was just really wondering what angle I was going with like content. Like he was really, I think he was curious.
Okay.
Like it wasn't like a rude thing.
Yeah.
He wasn't like mean about it at all.
Yeah.
It was more just like, I genuinely just don't get it. Like, I don't feel like you're talking to me like in this. Like I liked your other stuff that you were doing before. And I was like, yeah, man, like I'm really trying to attract this specific person. And I named like some of the demographics and psychographics of that person. And he was like, oh, that would totally land with that person. Like, I get it now, like why you're talking like this or why you're saying these types of things and doing that. And I'm like, yeah, that's the type of people that I want to be following this account. It's not for everybody, you know?
Yeah, no, it's almost like, you know, people fear what they don't know. So
yeah, but also too, like coming back to that, this is with content, like if you try to talk to everybody and you try to be liked by everybody, it's not going to work out. There's going to be people who disagree with you, who don't like your stuff, who aren't vibing with what you're talking about. But if you let those people hold you back from putting out what you want to, you're not going to meet the people that you're desiring to.
Yeah, that's so real. Yeah. And that's why, like in my content, I'm always talking about like finding your people.
Exactly. Yeah. I love your content, by the way, dude. Like, I literally watch it all the time. We're always messaging back and forth, too, and we're like, bro.
Yeah, you're my hype man, bro. Like, no, it's I appreciate that, dude. Like, I feel the same about your content, man. Like,
thank you.
Like every time you post something, I'm like, I'm on it, man. I'm on it.
but that comes back to the thing that we were just talking about, right? Of like, you find your people and they support you and they understand you, and then you feel like you can relate to somebody about it. But that takes time to like get there, right?
And I wish I knew this like a lot younger because I was super naive. I was like, oh, your family and friends are supposed to be the ones to support you the most, you know, to believe in you and all that kind of stuff. But it was very naive of me to think that, like, you know, they would understand or even know what I'm doing, essentially.
Bro, like my friends and family have no idea what I actually do. like they understand the like baseline of it, but like what, like honestly, like what you do. Do you think that like your parents or your friends, if you were like, this is what I do, they would get the base level understanding because you know so much about what you do and it's so intricate and there's so many different things that you're actually doing. They just don't know.
They don't know. Like my parents especially, like, no, not a clue.
Exactly. So if they don't know, then how can they really like support it to the fullest that, you know?
See, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, just wish I knew earlier.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we actually did for Christmas this year, so I was very fortunate. I went home for Christmas this year, which is something that I've really been always trying to do. And we had this presentation night with my friends where we made a PowerPoint and we actually presented like what we do for work so we could all understand each other on a deeper level. And one of the things that came from that was, first off, I got to communicate what I actually do for like a living. And my friends were like, oh, you're like doing like way more than just posting videos on Instagram. Like there's a whole thing here that's like another. But then I also got a lot of respect for them as well too, because I was looking at what they were doing and, you know, there's always this like battle between 9 to 5 and entrepreneurship. But I looked at what they were doing and I was like, you guys are so smart. Like, this is awesome that you guys are doing this kind of stuff. And I felt like I could even support them more. So maybe what we need to do more of is really have those conversations with our friends and family and truly explain things, and they can feel the passion and the work ethic behind what we do, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
I would never have even thought to do something like that, but I could see how powerful it is. Because, like, I'm sure that as your friends are describing their 9 to 5 or whatever, you're probably sitting there thinking, like, I could probably not do that.
Dude, they were doing some stuff. There's no way that I could do a lot of that stuff that they were doing. No. And it's just like a respect thing as well too, where I was like, oh, I understand you more. I respect what you're doing. And I always had this like inner push to like everyone should start a business. Like I was always, because I was a business coach too. So I was like, start a business, trust me. And I always tried to push that on my friends. But I remember this one conversation I had with one of my best friends. His name's Brady. And we had this conversation. I was like really pushing him to like, you know, start something of his own. I'm like, you're so smart, man. Like, trust me, you would crush it in this. Like, you have such a good skill set. And he was like, I genuinely love my job. And I was like, oh, and he's like, dude, I love what I get to do. Like, I love the work environment. I love the people that I work with. I love the stuff that I'm actually doing every single day. Like, I really enjoy it. And that was a transition for me to be like, people can have enjoyment outside of entrepreneurship, sometimes even more than entrepreneurship. And it's all about what you truly want in your life.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Just because we would find it hard to spend our time, effort, and energy into somebody else's thing, right? They might find it enjoyable in a sense that like they get to spend more time with their family or have this like dedicated schedule that they know what they're going to do every single day.
Yeah, or they just love what they're actually doing in the work, and it's like, I believe in the mission of my company, or I believe in what we're trying to do in the world, or something like that. Yeah,
I love that. Yeah, like to each their own. Like
to each their own.
Took me a while to do that too, because I would always be like, you gotta do your own thing. You're not gonna give all your life, away to somebody else's business. Do your own. But now I'm definitely like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's more that you have to put into actually building a business than what people realize. Like, it's very glamorized, like owning your own business, but I'll speak for myself, man. This tests me.
Yeah.
Like, the most I've ever been tested in my entire life.
Same.
There's been great times and there's been really tough times, and it's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the time too. Like, it's not like it's gonna be like good from now on type of thing. It's just gonna keep on going. I thought I was like, 90% like pretty good, and then something will come like punch me in the face, and I'll be like, I am not as grown as I thought I was.
No, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like at this moment, like one thing that really punched me in the face is to like understand stress and like manage it. Just because I am taking more things this year. So I'm really trying to I'm not going to say balance, because balance would be the wrong thing I'm trying to do.
Sure.
But it's to understand and manage and like sit in the feeling, because we're always told to, like be in the moment, be present and stuff like that for the good times. But what about these moments, where we have a spectrum of emotions as a human being? Like, sit in this for a sec and like feel it really, right?
What's your relationship with stress? I'm curious.
I think it's very naive on my end, where it's like I try to run away from it a lot of times. So like if there's projects, if there's client stuff that like is like super stressful or something like that, I would intentionally try to like do things to deter them from picking me almost. But that's like subconscious too. Like, I'm not actively trying to do that.
Yeah. Stress is it's something that's like, I'm still trying to understand it, but the reason that I asked that was I feel like we all have been told that we have a bad relationship with stress, or stress is a bad thing.
Yeah.
But I actually believe that there's levels of stress that are really good.
Yeah.
Like, I'll speak for myself here. Like, when I have some stress under me that something needs to be done, or I want it to be in a certain way or something like that, it helps me go to a completely different level than when I didn't have that stress. And so there's like this graph from this book. It's called The Leading Brain, Unreal book. Absolutely love that book. Anyone who wants to like optimize their work day and stuff like that, highly recommend. Sweet. There's this graph of like arousal versus performance. And so it actually talks about how people handle stress and what types of stress levels are actually good for people. So there's some people who operate best under really low stress. Like, if I have very low stress, I can think and I can do my work really well. And there's other people who very high stressed individuals help them perform to their best.
Yeah.
And so for me, I've really had to understand, like, when am I in good stress and when am I in bad stress, and how is this actually going to affect my performance? Nice. Yeah.
I think, like, I guess the way that I would put my thing is that I'm avoidant when it comes to stress. But at the same time, like, I totally know what you mean. Like, the performance, when the pressure is on, like, suddenly you're just like, game time.
Game time.
Right?
Yeah. But I don't know, like, do you think that it's also like some of the work that you do. Like, let's say you get a massive project. I just saw you were working on, what was the thing that you were just working on? It was something about restaurants.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So you take on this huge project, and at the very beginning, you probably have self-doubt.
Yeah.
You have some fear of like, is this going to actually work? And then you get into it and it's stressful.
Yeah.
But as you're going through the creation process, you create something beautiful.
Yeah.
You know?
I love that. But like also at the same time, I think that creativity might come or the reason why I want to avoid stress a lot of times is because I try to prioritize the creative side of me.
Right.
Where when you're super stressed, it's hard for you to actually be like super creative.
Yes.
For me. Anyway.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe what type of work you do depends on like that stress level.
So like performance, like higher stress might be like so good for it, right?
Yeah.
And then you have your creative side where you need to be in that playful spirit like we were talking about earlier.
Yes.
And so there's that.
That's oh man, this is opening up some good stuff now. That's something that I've actually tried to create in my weekly schedule.
Whoa.
So in my weekly schedule, what I'm doing is like one day is a very creative day where there's not as much structure to it.
Yeah.
And there's nobody really trying to contact me. It's all about creation. And then there's other days where it's like doing like really focused work and getting on calls with people and creating other types of things, but not in that like kind of state that I'm in. And so I try to do that during my weekly schedule to give different things. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I don't even think about stuff like that. I'm just like, let's just like create, and if something happens, then I go and do it.
Yeah. Well, the thing that it landed me on, it was actually my university schedule. So in university, you have like classes on like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then Tuesday, Thursdays are different classes.
Yeah.
At least at the school that I went to. I can't speak for everybody, but I started to realize that I performed better when I would be taking days to focus on different things. Like I went like back into my life and I was like, when I was performing at my best. And then I found that pattern. And then in my business, I created the same sort of pattern. So my days are different and I have like flow days versus focus days. And that's a game changer.
Yeah, I need to do that.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, I'm like, okay, let's just create something for myself, like marketing pieces for myself every single day. Like when I first wake up, because that's when I'm like most motivated, right?
Yeah.
But I think this, like sectioning things off, might work better for me.
Yeah, it always depends on the person. I think it's a trial and error thing. Yeah. Always. It's like try something, learn from it, and then re-implement. Plan, implement, evaluate, adjust. That's like my life philosophy.
No, that's so good. I'm going to try it and like get back to you to see how well it works for me.
Accountability here. We all heard it.
Yeah, let's go. Okay, I guess we could wrap it up now. The last question is, what is one piece of advice you would give your younger self, your young self?
Oh, man. There's probably a lot of things. I truly think that it is, you need to believe in yourself because you're more capable than what you think you are. I think that's just been a common theme in my life of just like not believing that I'm good enough all the time or not believing like I can do something. And then when I am working in the sense where I do believe in myself and I'm telling myself that, I am more capable than I thought I was. And so, you know, the younger version of me, like I can think of him not making the hockey team that he wanted to make, or, you know, not being in the place that he wanted to be or whatever. And I just would tell that person, like, believe in yourself because you're more capable than you think you are. I think that would serve him really well.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you, bro.
I appreciate you, bro. That was deep. Maybe for the last thing, just tell people where they can find you.
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram at David Jachetta.